On this episode, Mitra and I are going to talk about shadow work and going deeper on some of the concepts that we built in a recent episode we did on shame. And if you haven't checked out that episode, we recommend that you check it out. It's episode number 41. We'll also say that if you are someone who has not yet done some degree of shadow work, some degree of personal work, whether that be with a therapist or through other means, that you save this episode for when you do or after you've had a chance to go through episode 41 that we did on shame. Now, let's define what we mean by shadow work. I'm going to start off by sharing the traditional definition of it, and then we'll delve a little bit deeper about how me and Mitra see shadow work a little bit differently. What is shadow work? Conventionally, shadow work is the practice of exploring and integrating the unconscious parts of ourselves that we have rejected, denied, or hidden. So, Mitra, I'm curious, what is your personal definition of shadow work, and how does it differ from the one I just shared with you?
Mhm. For me, shadow is the part of us who lives in self-created fear. I call it survivalist, but that's what it is. Self-created fear that we're not aware of, or we're aware of, but we let them run the show for us. That's, to me, my shadow.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you? What about you? What is shadow
It
to you?
It does. The shadow to me is similar. It's the dark spots in our mind. It's the misperceptions and misunderstandings that we have had and that have created this self-created fear.
Mhm.
And when we shine the light on it, which is the work of shadow work, those fears,
Mhm.
we realize those fears were self-created after all, that there was nothing to fear.
Mhm.
And that's when integration can happen.
Yeah, but let me add something. This is the part that is remembered. It's long lasting. It's not the temporary one. It's not the one that I remember when I enter this place or see that person. It is the part that is very, very much solidified in our memory. So it's become our go-to part of us. There was once, once upon a time, there was a fear, actual fear, true fear, and I behaved this way. And now anything that reminds me of that slightly, either through my senses or through just practice and memory, I go to that part. There was a person who was attacking me and had bad intentions, but now I'm talking to a friend, I'm talking to you, and you're just asking how I am, and I'm answering and interacting with you as if you are my enemy number one.
Yeah. Um, it's become habituated.
Hmm.
And I deal with that even to this day.
Hmm.
There's certain parts of myself, there's certain relationships that are very triggering to me. And I react in a way, at least internally, it's totally irrational. Even I'm aware that it's irrational, but I can't help but to
Hmm.
feel that way. Shadow work is not easy work, but it's incredibly rewarding work that we can do. And before we continue, Mitra, I think it would be helpful for our audience if we recap some of the key mindsets that we talked about in episode 41 when we talked about shame.
Yes. Go ahead.
There were four key mindsets that we talked about in that episode.
Hmm.
One was, I am responsible for my inner experience.
Hmm.
Totally responsible. Responsibility here, we define it as our ability to respond
Hmm.
and the choice that we have in how we respond to any situation that we're experiencing in our
Hmm.
day to day life. The second mindset was, there is nothing to fix. In other words, there is nothing wrong with me. This is a tricky one. It's disguised because we might go about our self-healing process believing that there's something wrong with us that we have to fix. And the truth is that, as we said earlier, that these shadow parts are just misunderstandings, misinterpretations. There's actually nothing to fix. It's really just a matter of shining the light on these shadow parts so that we can see things as they really are. The third mindset was healing doesn't have to be hard. So this is something that I had struggled with a lot. The belief that in order for healing to happen, I have to struggle a little bit. No pain, no gain. That the harder it is, the better the results that I'm getting. And what I've learned, and the truth is that healing doesn't have to be hard. It can be quite graceful and easy if we believe it can. And then finally, we had talked about how important gentleness is as we go through this type of work and go through our process. I had the tendency to want to kind of bulldoze my way through my healing process and take a very masculine, active, driven approach. And it didn't work for me. And what I've learned, and what you had learned as well with everyone that you've worked with, we mentioned that gentleness is so, so important. And it's a process of peeling the layers of the onion. Is there
Mm.
anything you want to add to that, Mitra?
I would like to translate what you said because you spoke from the mindset, and I would like to talk about the energetic and heart
Mm,
openness.
yeah.
So I'm going to translate all those four into a different language. So responsibility, one, is really knowing that you have a choice. You always have a choice. So the energetic, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, aspect of that, because you spoke more from the mindset and mental perspective. The second one, you said no fixing. And the way I would see that is that we're not broken. We're just flowing and learning. And so there's nothing broken here. I'm not broken. You're not broken. And none of us need fixing. And the third one was that healing doesn't need to be hard. I would translate that when you go from energy to matter, meaning when you look at this from the inner perspective first, instead of what I need to do, and you look at where you are energetically, your belief system, your relationship, and your voice with yourself, then you will see that if it took 40 years or 30 years or 50 years to get to this point of brokenness that you may feel or we may feel, it doesn't need to be another 50, 40, 30 years to fix it, because when you turn around, when you are in darkness, all you need to do is turn on the light and darkness no longer exists. You don't need to go through the duration of darkness in order to undo it. And the fourth one, which is gentleness, will automatically come when you go through those three steps with your heart open. The compassion, the understanding comes when you know what you're doing. We are just work in progress, or as was a movie, very old black and white movie about Christmas. I can't recall what it was called. There's a beautiful statement in it. It says, "We're just angels growing wings." And when
Yeah.
you look at your journey, your experiences from that point of view, I'm an angel trying to grow back my wings, then all those harsh attitude and rushness and deadlines disappear. So let's go with our shadow
Thank you.
work.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Thank you for
Mhm,
sharing it from those perspectives, Mitra. When it comes to actually doing the work, Mitra,
mhm,
let's dive into that a little bit more. When you are confronted with some part of yourself, with some shadow part of yourself,
mhm.
and it would be great if you can give an example. What do you go through? What is your journey with that?
Well, this doing starts with being, and that is being aware that that part of me even exists. Because if you told me, let's say you were a witness to a conversation, a very, very fearful conversation, shadow conversation with someone, and you were just a witness, and you tell me, Mitra, I think that's your shadow part, as you called it, or fear, self-created fear part, as I called it, I would argue with you. And I would say, no, but you don't know what they said and they did this. I want to prove to you that there is something wrong with the other parts involved beside me. So And there might be, I'm not going to argue with that. People do things that are not appropriate and say things that are not fair or true. But the fact that that experience became mine is important. This is not a courtroom. It's not whose fault it is. This is about the fact that for some reason, out of all people in the room or out of all the people in that place, I'm experiencing that. So that should be a beautiful little bell that says, Mitra, you need to pay attention to this. So
Mm.
being aware that that part of me exists and it's activated right now and has a really big voice. So that's the first step for me, becoming aware that that unseen part of me is activated right now. So that's the first step for me.
Mhm.
The second part is for me to know that I can actually see I have a choice and I can see that part of me. Let me watch her and see what's going on. And I look at her and I see, oh, she's really frightened and she's assuming a lot of things. Usually that's what happens because if the fear is illusionary, that means that my mind has made it up. So when I open that and I see that truly there is no fear, and this person or this incident cannot take anything away from me. And I have a choice to show up differently, then things become different. So one is awareness. Two is seeing and activating my choice. And then three, so these were all being. Three is then do something about it. What does that mean? That could be deciding to do some work with a professional. That could be doing some personal work. That could be that it's that decision. So the last one is a decision to do, to act. The first two parts was like being different, showing up differently, and then taking action. And that taking action is very different for every person. Some people are more like, I need help. Some people are more like, I need to go deeper. I need to take a break. Whatever works for you, I don't know because I don't know the specific circumstance for people. And I remember that working with people, every person is different. I send notes after each session. And if I look at the notes that I've sent out to people like have come to me for a very, very common reason, they're completely different depending on circumstances. So there is no one size fits all. It depends what works for you. If I told you to from now go with this and take action, that might be too much for somebody else. For me, the process is these three: awareness, choice consciousness, and then decision and discipline to act and move forward with something that will allow me to shed some light and see the side that were hidden but very, very activated.
Yeah, I love that framework. It's simple, it's easy to understand, and I know from real life experience that it's can be quite challenging to apply in in real life. So let's break these down a little bit more. I really resonated with what you said about being able to hear the bell when the bell
Mhm,
rings. Step
mhm,
one, having the awareness.
mhm,
And this was a skill that took time for me to develop,
mhm,
which is to know that anytime any situation or anyone triggers me,
mhm,
that's an opportunity right there for me to
mhm,
look at a shadow part of me
mhm,
and to acknowledge that everyone and everything that I perceive is a mirror of me.
mhm,
So any judgment or criticism that I have of anyone is really a judgment or criticism that I'm having about myself or some aspect of myself. So having that bell is one thing, right? And developing that practice can be challenging at times. Sometimes it's really hard to see
mhm,
that this person who they did something that I experience as betrayal,
mhm,
and I'm convinced that they did that and what they did was bad and not good.
mhm,
It can be very difficult, Mitra, to acknowledge that as like, oh, this is something that I
mhm.
need to address within myself. It actually has nothing to do with that person. So how do you advise your clients usually when they're dealing with that,
Mhm.
when they're in that state?
So it is true. Sometimes it actually happens, and we have experienced betrayal, unfairness, anything. But the question is, where do you go first? Of course, being a physical being, I need to address it. If I'm being treated unfairly, let's say at workplace, I don't want to just say, "Oh, I'll just do some personal work and let it go." I mean, my Human Rights Commission hat is on right now. Of course, I need to take some action. But the question that is here, and this is a very important and sensitive one, is why out of all people I'm experiencing this? And somebody may say,
Mm,
but not everybody experiences it. Okay. But you're experiencing it to a degree that you would like to take some action. It is live for you. Okay. That's the first question. And then the next question is, what do I need to do inwardly inside of me? And then what do I need to do outwardly? The challenge is in fear state, in self-created fear state, I just want to go out there and fix them.
mhm,
I want to prove to you they were unfair. I want to prove to you and take some action, and that's fine. But the question is also, we can't ignore our inner work. So first let's go in and see what I need to do and how I need to be, perhaps the process that I suggested or any other work that you see fit. And then the question is, what do I need to do outwardly? Because not everything gets resolved from my energetic work. I also need to pick up the phone. I need to also call a meeting. I also need to have a conversation and say, you've been treating me this way, and this is what my plan is, and this is my request. However, when I don't do that and just go outwardly, there's a good chance that I would be reacting and I won't be successful in achieving what I would like to achieve. I will never change people. But if I went in and did my work, let's say you treated me unfairly and you're my boss. Let's just assume that. And I see that you're intentionally being unfair or racially, somehow I'm disadvantaged or because of my sexual orientation or my gender, whatever it is, you are treating me unfairly because I am a woman and I'm older than you. The question is,
mhm.
what did I do? What did I feel? What did I look at before calling a meeting with you and saying, Ben, I'm experiencing this. These are my suggestions to you, and tell me what you're planning to do. That would be, even in the world of actuality and practicality and material world, that would be far more effective than if I just reacted to you. Because when we react, we are saying, oh, so you want me to be quiet and do nothing? No, I want you to take action, but I want you to take an action based on a very clear intention. So that's what I would do. I would
Yeah.
look at what's going on inside of me and do all my work. And that could be done in 5 minutes. It's not like go back 5 years later, but I need to do that. And from that place of clarity and groundedness that I'm very, very clear about what I'm saying and what I'm feeling and what was my role in this whole exchange, I come back to you and then I say what I want to say. But if I saw you only as a problem and I thought what needs to change here is that Ben needs to be educated and Ben needs to lose his job or Ben needs to be fixed, then I will see, and people report that to me, that this experience, maybe in another shape or form, but in essence the same, will get repeated in my life
Mm.
until I get to a place that I learn what I'm seeing in the mirror is a spot on my face. And no matter how much I clean the mirror, the spot on my face won't go away until I clean it and clear it on my face.
That's what I was thinking of, was the pattern. I asked myself the question,
Hmm.
is this a pattern? Is this experience that I'm experiencing right now with this person, is it a familiar experience that I have had with other people? And almost always it is. Oftentimes it is for me. That's a great litmus test. And that shines a light on the fact that, okay, maybe I'm the common denominator here. Maybe
Mhm,
it's really not about them. Maybe I got to look inward at what's going on with me. Why am I creating this pattern
mhm,
with people? What is it within me that is continually causing it?
mhm. And maybe it's also
And
about them. Because I mean, you could also be, they're not mutually exclusive. You could be the racist person, but I also could be the person that brings this about.
yeah,
So it's not the innocence of the other party because I can hear the voices objecting to that. I mean, I don't know if listeners are doing it or not, but I'm going to do it on their behalf. They could be saying, "Oh, but you don't understand. I'm a person from this gender, from this sexual orientation, and from this age group, and come to my workplace and tell me that it's just me." It could be both.
it always is both. That's
Thank you.
that's my experience. It's always the work for both people. They have their work and I have my work, but
Yes.
I'm concerned about myself and how I respond to the
Hmm.
situation.
Hmm.
And more specifically, my the inner experience that I have in response to that situation.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
I ask myself too is what is the cost of this to
Hmm.
me? If I don't address this, I can not
Hmm.
address it. I could just
Hmm.
continue going about life not doing it. What is the cost to me? Maybe there isn't much of a cost,
Hmm.
but let's look at it. Let me kind of objectively assess
Hmm.
how is this affecting my life, the quality of my life, my relationships? Would I experience more joy? What am I giving up
Hmm.
by not looking at this thing and addressing it? Uh, more joy, more love,
Hmm.
greater sense of peace, more
Hmm.
creativity.
Great
You know,
question.
and that can be motivating. That can be that motivates me to want to look at this thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
and to address it. I'll just say I have experience, and um, a lot of friends who I know who are into personal development work have experience to doing this work. It's very easy to brush it off. I'll deal with it later, or it's not that important.
Hmm.
I got more important things to deal with,
Oh, they're
right?
bad. Oh,
Yeah,
they're bad.
yeah. So it can be really effective and powerful to just reflect on how is this really impacting my
Hmm.
life? What am I giving up
Hmm.
by doing by not
That's
looking
a
at it?
great question, what you suggested. That's what will motivate you into action.
Yeah,
What price am I prepared to pay? Do I
yeah,
go on thinking the world is a bad place and these people are bad and continue to feel bad? Or do I want to just pay a different price, as you called it, the cost, and and see if I can attend to this matter from a different perspective. And your first point was also very interesting. When do you know the shadow is active? Is when things don't feel right. It's a very simple test. I come out of this conversation, I come out of this meeting, in this interaction, and something stays with me and doesn't taste good. That's a good time to go in and see how much of it was mine and how much of it was because of the other party or parties, and see if there's anything that needs to be worked on. And from experience, both professional and personal, I know anything that lingers needs my attention. If it's 2 days after our meeting and I'm still, that repetition that happens in the mind, I'm answering your questions in my head and objecting to you, that means it happens all the time. It's really amazing.
yeah,
If you start thinking out loud, they will take all of us into mental institutions and won't let us
yeah.
out. I sometimes say, just speak out loud and call somebody else crazy if you dare. But it's just, if it's lingering, if I'm still objecting to you, still not going, but Ben, do you know, blah, 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 then I know that there's something that needs my attention. And I emphasize my attention beside diagnosing you with all the conditions that we diagnosed other people with. And we're very quick to do that and sometimes very good. It's amazing how precise people are in diagnosing other people. But
Hmm.
if I say, what about you? You say, what about me? Don't you know? Don't you agree that this person is? I do. I do. I completely agree with you. But remember, there were two people involved in this exchange. What about you? And when you take no role in that, then the shadow will persist.
Yeah. So, okay, we get to the point where we're like, okay, there's something there for me to look at. I want to look
Mhm,
at it because I want to be happier and more peaceful. I just think back to when I started to look at some of these things. Let me tell you, there were times where it was a lot. It was
mhm,
overwhelming.
mhm,
Too much, or I'd start looking and I'd get more activated.
mhm.
So, how do you typically, when you're dealing with your clients who are experiencing just that, what do you tell them?
If I'm working with myself or when I'm working with others, I tell them, warn them, and I remind myself that it's going to be difficult and messy. You open your closet, you want to clean it up. You had been closing it down and pretending it's okay. Now you open it. First, it's going to be messy. You got to bring out the mess in order to clean up the mess. So expect that and don't let that frighten you. It's okay. It's messy for a reason. I call it messiness with a purpose, not messiness, period. So that's the first thing that I remind myself or share with those that I'm working with. And then knowing that there is a choice, there is another way of working through this. I don't know the way yet. Maybe I have never experienced it or seen it even, talking about role models that we usually lack. But this is where the beauty of imagination comes in. Let's imagine that there is this person that I know or know of. Let's say there is a person that I really, really respect. Okay. I ask myself if that person or that part of me was available to me, the person that sees the truth and dares to see the truth. What would be the other option? So we are imagining, and we're good at that because the first aspect of it was imagination also. I was imagining there is a danger. Remember, it
Mm.
was self-created fear. So if it's self-created fear, that means that my imagination is creating something that is not true or augmenting something that is a little bit true.
The question is, am I imagining? I think that's
Yes.
the first question because sometimes if we jump to I'm imagining, the mind does not agree with that. The mind is seeing it as it is, at least it believes it is. So the question, am I imagining? And actually
Mhm.
looking, contemplating that it can be imaginary, and oftentimes it is. I mean, almost always it is,
Yes,
right?
but there must be something. You're very correct in saying that. It is not just pure imagination. There must be a point of reference. So again, memory. It could be memory, and it could be the fact that that danger exists to a sort of a slight degree. Maybe I did intend to sort of put you down a little bit. You know, there was that intention, and you picked on that. So we're not always just making it up. Sometimes it's little things, we're making it bigger. Sometimes it was little thing and we're bringing it to this experience. And sometimes it is a big thing. So we want to be respectful to our experience. We're not just always imagining things. You're right. But we are always making it about us and making it bigger than what it is. Um, so the question is, if I was more aware, if the non-shadow part of me, the part that does not make up stories about fear and about me not being good and about you always having intention to harm me, if they were not there and you're just playing here, depending on the circumstance and the experience you're having, just imagine the opposite of fear, whatever it is for you, and see if you can activate the other part of you, the more bright part of you, the one that is more grounded. What would they say and do? What would they feel in this moment? And then you see that it's quite possible because mind does this, and I've witnessed that. Mind could make up almost everything fearful. the frightened mind, of course. I'm talking about the frightened part of the mind. Mind could be neutral, inactive, if we've done some work. And the opposite is also true. Mind could make everything to our benefit. I witnessed something that I never forget. I was in a doctor's office waiting room with my mom. As I take my mom to all her appointments, and a very activated person arrived and was talking to the receptionist. And I just marveled at the way this receptionist worked with this person that had come for a fight. Sometimes we've come
Oh yeah.
just like, give me a good fight. You know, I'm in need of it. Vitamin F is missing. Please give me a good one. And the person came, said, they give me an appointment, blah, 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 blah. And it was just beautiful to watch the receptionist just translate everything this activated person said into a need or a request. And I was
Mm,
just, I was like in awe. It was like mindfulness and inner work, spirituality in action. So the person went on and on and on. And the receptionist took the part that was informational and said, oh, so you have called 3 times and they haven't given you the answer? And the person, yeah. But the second part became a less activated by that
mm,
translation because the
yeah.
person heard them purely. And everything they said was translated. It was just like the receptionist could not hear the fighting language.
Mm,
It
mhm.
was just so beautiful. So that's the third. So I can make everything into a fight. I could be in a neutral place and listen to things as they are. And 3, if I'm really done a lot of work and I was so interested to speak to this person, but I didn't get a chance to see how could they do that? How could they translate everything into no fight and into no fear language? It was just so joyful to watch. So that translator exists within all of us. The question is, what job have I given the translator? Because they call it the ABC. A is actually what is happening. B is what my belief and filter is, the translator. And C is what is the conclusion. So where is the B in us? What filter, what belief do I have around this? That everything is in the fighting and war zone? Then it depends. I'm going to just hear you, or I'm going to translate everything into a language that I understand, which is, okay, a request. I see you, you're activated, you're not in a good place. So
Mm.
that was a long answer to that, but I was just so beautiful to share that story that that's also possible.
Yeah, that I love that image because it gives an image of how we can be in response to something. And some of the thoughts that came to my mind, she was clearly aware, this woman who was responding, that it was not about her. She was not taking it personally,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? It was not about her. She could see that this person has their own stuff is activated, and she's sifting through that
Mm-hmm.
person's emotions versus the actual facts and what is it this person wants and needs.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that came to my mind is how we can have that dialogue with that activated part of ourselves, how we can literally have a conversation in real time in front of a mirror or through journaling, where the activated part of ourselves is like, well, screw them. I can't believe they said that, this and that. And we get to be the one who's curious about this activated part of ourselves and understanding what is it that it's really wanting? What is it that it
Mm-hmm.
really needs?
Mm-hmm.
And shining the light on
Mm-hmm.
this shadow part.
Yeah. Loving that part of you.
Yeah.
Just like as a good friend, if I saw you activated, I won't start attacking you. I would probably say, do you want a hug? So hugging, accepting that part of you, because there was a reason for me to be that frightened. There is a reason that I go there so often. So It's not to negate it. It's not to get rid of it. It's not to object it. It's to accept it and see it and hear it, because there's a point there. There is something that obviously needs to be healed. There is a reason that I go there as soon as fill in the blank. I talk about this subject. I talk to this kind of person. So accepting it and embracing it and hugging it, because if we go to fixing it and trying to get rid of it, it actually becomes more activated. It becomes more powerful. It, like, now I have a reason to stay in a room. So there is a way of dealing with it that is far more compassionate and energetically. My suggestion is, if you need a visual, it's like an angry person has entered the room when you're having this meeting. You just ask them to sit there and say, would you like a hug? Would you like a cup of tea? Let them sit down, calm down, because they also may have a piece of information and good advice for you that by throwing it out, you're not going to hear it. And plus, that's the part of me that is there for a reason. That's a part of me that was formed based on something. I can't just negate that experience. If I was activated by certain kind of person or in certain kind of conditions, I need to see that. I need to respect that and honor that and see what is there for me to learn about that and to welcome even. Why do I only get activated by fill in the blank when you talk about this or when you criticize me? There are a lot of people that have huge sensitivity about being criticized,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and they immediately, what you call the shadow part, what I call the self-created fear part, comes out to fight. Well, I need to really honor that. Maybe that was my experience as I was growing up. Maybe everyone criticized me. Maybe as soon as I opened my eyes, somebody made fun of me. And I can't just say, get out of the room. I want the light and bright part of me to come in. I need to just say, oh, I'm so sorry for your experience, but let's see if we can do it some other way. Maybe there is another way, but I hear you.
Yeah. And I just want to emphasize, for me, the key part was understanding this part of me that is triggered. And what you said really resonated, which was, this part of me was hurt at some point. It's there for
Mm-hmm.
a reason. It's not totally irrational. I mean, it first occurred for a reason. And I want
Mm-hmm.
to understand that part of me, because it's calling to be heard. It's calling to
Mm-hmm.
be seen, and in that process to be healed. So asking questions to really understand why it's responding the way it is. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to be careful about using why. I know that you're very careful about how we use why, but it's really just about understanding what is is creating this, and what do I believe about this situation that
Mm-hmm.
is making me feel that way. I feel like my safety is threatened when I'm being criticized. Is it really being threatened? And contemplating that, what do I believe will happen? And it's okay, whatever I believe will happen. It's okay if it's totally irrational,
Mm-hmm.
but let's look at it for what it is. And then once I understand it more and I understand it deeply, where it's coming from, and I can look at it from the lens of compassion, then it's a lot easier for me to then start thinking about, how can I respond to this situation in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And acknowledging and honoring, then maybe once it protected me, maybe me screaming and augmenting what is going on helped me to
Yeah.
get out of a true dangerous situation one time. But that then stayed and became my memory. So you need to honor even what you call bad reaction or harsh reaction or negative reaction, whatever we call it. Honor that too, because once probably when I first did that, it's what saved me. Had I not screamed, had I not exaggerated, I probably would have been really harmed and hurt. So That's the part that we're saying honoring and letting it in, as opposed to, because we go to too extreme, we either let this side of us to take complete charge, or we want to completely get rid of it and throw it out. And the balanced way is the way to do it. Call it in, but don't let it be the only voice. Hear it out and remind it. Usually these things are formed when we were in a place of no authority. So maybe when I was younger, when I was in a place that I truly was at the mercy of people, I had to go quiet or I had to scream. So now it wants to come out in a different way and over scream and over exaggerate. Well, exaggerate is enough, but not now. Now I have authority. Now I'm actually, if I am in a safe place, I can choose to respond differently. I don't need to react anymore. And I always say, please start small. Start when you are, I don't know, at the supermarket and the cashier says something. Start there and then bring it to your life partner or your colleague or your boss or whoever that you're really activated by. Usually they're family members or colleagues, something that happens regularly. So start very small with people that do not matter that much in your life or they do not appear that much in your life. Start there and see, is there another way that I can actually do that? I usually practice it with when I call to organizations and institutions to object to something that they haven't done or they have done. And that's such a great practice for me. I actually meditate before calling, I don't know, bank of such and such organization that I, order things from or purchase things from. Before calling, I say, okay, who's going to speak? And believe
Mm,
it or not, sometimes is I choose the activated one because I
mm,
know that's what's going to work. But as
mm,
long as I know I decided with awareness, I'm not saying always being meek and saying good day and how are you? This is going to work. Sometimes it's saying I'm really upset and I would like to speak. Sometimes that voice works. That part of my voice works.
mm.
But as long as I am completely in charge,
Yeah.
and that's very important. I remember once we were at a restaurant and we had made a reservation. It was a special event for my mom. And we went in, my brother went in and came back and said, they say they don't have any reservation. I said, well, what do you mean? I made a reservation. He said, no, that they don't. And there's no room, Mitra. I said, okay, I'm going to scream, but just know I'm not losing it. He said, okay. So he stood back and I went in and very intentionally I raised my voice. And I said, I talked to this person. It was this date. And they told me table for this. And they had told me something very specific. I repeated it. And I said, is that true? They said, yes, that's true about our restaurant. I said, well, I couldn't know that unless I talked to someone. And I raised my voice and I said, I'm going to go to the car. I'm going to get my mother. I'm going to come back and I expect a table when I come back. And my brother said, there is no table, Mitra. I said, let's go and get mom. We got our mom. We came back. The table appeared somehow. They put a table together. So it was very intentional. I didn't lose it. I knew what I was doing and I raised my voice. I do that with banks. I do that with institutions because sometimes they need that voice. But as long as there is a decision maker, the aware me saying which one needs to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a skill that takes time. Over time as we do this work, we develop that skill and that ability to call upon those parts of ourselves consciously. You mentioned starting small, and I really resonate with that because if there's one major lesson that I've learned through my whole journey of doing this shadow work is going small and being gentle with myself
Mhm,
and knowing when to pause and to
mhm,
give it a break as well. What I've learned is, as we mentioned earlier, that healing doesn't have to be hard. And yes, healing is messy. Yes, you
mhm,
mentioned that as well. And it can be, but it doesn't have to be that messy either.
mhm,
And knowing when I open something up that might sometimes initially it seems small at the face of it, right? Someone made a comment that triggered me, and I start to look at it, and it ends up opening something much bigger in me that I
Mhm.
wasn't anticipating.
Mhm.
And it creates kind of this overwhelm of emotion because it activates a memory, let's just say from childhood when something really difficult happened to me. If I am feeling overwhelmed ever now, I take a pause. I take a pause, I give it a break, and I don't try and dig into it deeper and try and understand it when I'm being activated. And this is key because when I did do that, when I was activated and I dig deeper, oftentimes it would backfire. I get
Mhm.
overwhelmed. I would then be really activated. It would be reflected in my interactions with other people, friends, families, partner. It ends up making the whole process actually a lot more difficult for me. And at times I'd be like, well, what's the point of this stuff? This is clearly not working, or this is clearly making me feel worse. So learning to know where that limit is for
Mhm.
myself
Mhm.
was really, really important, and when to just take a step back and let it be. And sometimes it's just a matter of letting it be and even
Mhm.
forgetting about it and trusting that it's going to come up. No matter what, it's going to come up again. Life is going to give me another opportunity to look at this. Sometimes it's just leaving it where it's at. I'm not ready. It's overwhelming. And other times it's just give it some space, and then maybe a few days later inquire about it again, see how I'm
Mhm.
feeling about it. And other times it's getting help, is
Mhm.
understanding this is opening up a lot of stuff in me. Maybe I can get some help with this, which leads
Yeah.
into to the third step in your whole process, which is understanding the action, the
Mhm.
taking action. Step
Mhm.
3. When it comes to getting help, Mitra, what guidance can you offer? When do you think is appropriate to get help on something? And then how does one go about
Mhm.
getting help?
Before I answer this, I just wanted to add to something what you said, or maybe more clarified. You said knowing when to pause. I want to say knowing to pause because
Mm,
pause is always good. And you're
yeah.
right, timing is very important. The visual I give for that is that if I'm drowning in the waters and I just got out of the water, that's not the time to look at and see how do I prevent drowning again. That's the time to go and dry myself, heal myself, sit in under the sun, and just let my body settle down. That's not the time for, as much as I love lesson learning, that's not the time. And knowing the difference, it's very important. Does this feel too much for me? As you said, is this the time to learn? And then that leads into taking action, making sure that you put it somewhere that this needs attention, but not now. And taking action is as soon as your body calmed down, that's a good time. You've been saved from drowning. You are not wet anymore. You're not shaking anymore, but you know something did not work. I know that I didn't know how to swim when waters started to rise. And that is something for me to know that maybe I need to learn how to swim. And when it's good to find help, I think always it's good to find help. But the question is, what kind of help? Sometimes all I need is to really share it with someone that can hold the space. It could be a friend, could be a partner, could be what you and I do, Ben. Before every session, we take good time. I mean, today was over an hour to just share with each other, and that's all we did. None of us like started advising anyone, but there was a safe space to say, hey, I had this kind of week and this is not what's working for me. And could you just hear me out? Sometimes just hearing yourself speak is enough. Sometimes then you need to say it and hear somebody else speak, which means hopefully that's a professional, not somebody who themselves were drowning and didn't know how to save themselves. So but I'm saying is please know that if you were about to drown, and if especially that's a pattern, you often drown in waters of fill in the blank, reactivity, then it needs attention. It doesn't go away by repetition. True experience is to go through the same experience, but respond differently in a more skillful way and in a more enlightened way. So you always need help, but help can come in so many ways and shapes. And also, even if you're going to a professional, it needs to be a professional that is equipped to take you through steps that you're ready to go through. For instance, I always ask people if they've come to me first time, and I never advertise, so it's always through word of mouth. I ask them, have they told you about my style? Because I'm very, very direct. We usually do a work that probably takes, 20, 30 sessions to get there. And not everybody is ready to do that. And often I tell them that I don't think I'm the right professional for you to work at, because they want a lot of more staying in the pain, which is quite valid. I'm more about, do you want to go to the next step? And I'm very direct. It doesn't work for everybody, and it's not suitable. And I know it can be harmful. So it's knowing the kind of help you need, and then knowing the kind of professional, if that's your decision, that you need to work with. Just because this person is well known or your best friend recommended it doesn't mean that that person is suitable for you. I may be very suitable for you and extremely unsuitable for your family member. It will be shock to their system. They still want somebody to just, pamper them around their pain. So that's important, and please pay attention to that. It's not just about the professional being good at what they do. It's also about the style that they have that might or might not be suitable for you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mitra. Yeah, I learned the hard way in terms of finding the right people to get help from.
Mhm.
I worked with a lot of people that it their style actually didn't work for me before I was
Mhm.
able to learn and find out that I need to ask those types of questions before I
Mhm.
start working with someone. So we covered a lot in this
Yes.
episode. We hope you, the listener, got a lot of value from this episode. And if you have any questions about what we have discussed here, don't hesitate to leave your questions in the comments section of the podcast, or if you're listening on YouTube. We love your comments, your questions, and we love to be able to respond to them. Mitra, is there
Yes.
anything you want to close with?
Just don't forget, we are angels growing wings.
Amen. Until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description.
If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.